As you can already see in the background, rain has finally hit iRacing, and I already tested it a few laps. It's a lot of fun, but the biggest question for me was, is it realistic? Is a wet line possible, or like, is it faster than the dry line, than the regular dry line that you would usually drive? And that question was like really important to me because we have rain in basically every other sim racing title so far, but in my opinion, the rain there is basically just dry weather driving with a little bit of like reduced grip and just the visuals of rain, but it doesn't actually feel like rain. Because in rain, you just have to drive completely different lines in a completely different way. The track changes all the time. It's just a completely different way of driving. And that was always like the part missing in other sim racing titles to me, that like, oh man, I'm actually driving in rain now. It's not just 10% less grip. And so far, from my first few laps of experience that I had on iRacing now, it's pretty good. I was a bit skeptical at first, watching all the like preview videos that the other YouTubers released a few days prior. I was a bit skeptical. It looked a bit still strange, but then driving it myself, testing it myself, I was pleasantly surprised how good it is. Of course, it's not perfect. It will never be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Because wet weather driving in real life is actually like really difficult, especially on the racing line. We'll come to that later a little bit more, but yeah, I think iRacing pretty much hit the sweet spot with it in terms of fun, realism, and also for everyone being able to drive it and being able to somehow keep the car on track. It is difficult, but it is it is possible to not crash all the time. Let's say it like this. I will do a quick comparison about one lap with the dry line, just trying to be on the dry line like I would drive with sunshine. Hopefully I can keep it on track like this, because it will be slippery. And then after that, when I have my delta, I'll do one lap with the wet line that I also drove in real life already here at the Red Bull Ring in the BMW M4 GT4 during the DTM Trophy. We had one wet qualifying there where I was able to put the wet lines into use, and I'm gonna try it out if it's gonna be like that, if it's gonna be realistic, and how much faster we really are with a good wet line. Okay, let's turn on the wipers and off we go. A little bit of information. At first, I put the weather settings to moderate rain. Heavy rain is a lot of water. You rarely ever get to see that while racing in real life, and I think you will rarely ever get to see it in the sim as well. So moderate rain, static weather, so we have a good comparison, nothing changes. Also, the track is 100% rubbered in, so we get to simulate like a full racing weekend. Let's say we have already 2 days of basically dry running, a lot of sessions, different racing series, so a lot of rubber already laid down on the racing line. And then come to qualifying day, it starts to rain, and now we really have to find our way around the track with a wet driving line and see the comparison between, or the time difference between wet running or a wet line and a dry line. As you can see on the bottom, I also set the TC to 6 and the ABS to 8. iRacing recommends those as the wet TC and ABS settings. I don't know what kind of difference it really does, but just for the sake of it, we will use the wet settings if you already have those. I'm gonna set reset point here, so we have both laps with the same conditions. Alright, let's start it. Out of the last corner. Already a lot of standing water on the outside. A lot of slip on the rear axle while trying to accelerate, so quite late on the throttle. And then braking into turn 1. The car already moves around a lot. Trying to take a little bit of the curb inside and no curb on the outside. That's generally what I want to do on this lap. With the dry line is avoid curbs, even though it is the dry line, you would use them, but in the rain you just cannot use them, and for a comparison it would just then be silly to use them. braking here, very difficult. I tried to hit the apex, but the car just doesn't want to turn in. That's how slippy the racing line really is here. Also on throttle, a lot of spin, wheel spin on the rear. Then this one is very, very difficult, the braking downhill. Going in on the brakes very early. You can see the car just moving around a lot on the brakes, and then there's no grip turning on the apex. And also here, what is like usually a full throttle easy, it's a full drift through the whole corner. Here, ease it into the left. A lot of standing water on the inside, it just pushes you on the outside if you hit it. No curb on the outside. Puddle while turning in and braking. Very, very slippery. Also here, a lot of standing water on the inside. And also this is barely full throttle. If you just hold the steering wheel straight, you can manage full throttle, but yeah, very, very difficult on the normal line. Brake into the last one. Also standing water here on the curb. Pushes you to the outside again. And the most difficult corner. Curb on the inside. A lot of water on the outside. Just want to snap all the time. And then over the line, with the dry racing line, we have a 46.327. Alright, a wet line lap. Let's see if it really is faster, or maybe even slower. Maybe a mix of it. You start the last lap, or last corner, basically with the same line. There's two corners here where you use the same line as in the dry, that is the last corner, as well as the first corner. Although in the first corner you kind of have an approach of like being off the racing line, braking, you can brake later, move towards the racing line, and then, yeah, make your exit. But generally, same line through the corner. You just have a little bit of different braking in real life that I tried to use here. As well as on this corner, you try to brake on the right side, move back towards the left side over the racing line, a lot of slip going over the racing line, and then you try to make the cutback. In this corner really doesn't make a huge difference. You lose kinda a lot on the apex, you gain it back a little bit on the exit, and also here try to brake late. In this corner it works a little bit better. You brake late, use the grip available on the outside, better exit, and then try to stay on the left here, because you can go full throttle. You will have the grip. And also here, brake on the outside, stay more or less middle, more to the outside of the track. You'll have the grip through the corner, avoid the puddle. Also here, middle of the track, you can stay on the accelerator a little bit. And then, if you keep the steering wheel straight, you can accelerate full throttle out of here. Again, braking a little bit on the right. Moving to the left, crossing the racing line, staying off of the curb. Delta shoots green, and then yeah, here, same racing line. Just be very, very careful. And then exit, a little bit of slip through the puddle. And then over the line with an improvement of 1 second and 18 tenths. Alright, and now if we're gonna watch back the lap, I think turn 1, the whole meta will probably evolve. Like, people will find driving lines, the fastest lines, just the fastest way around. I'm not sure if on iRacing, for specific corners like here, if the fastest way really is to brake off of the racing line and move towards the racing line apex, or if you, in corners like this, just want to stay on the racing line. As well as for this corner, I didn't really gain a lot of time using the wet line here. I think probably for corners like this, it's just better to stay on the racing line, do your normal racing line that you would usually do. It's probably the fastest way around. But then, on the lap at the Red Bull Ring, we come to the fast corners. And I think that there it really makes a difference. There you notice the difference. Especially here, downhill braking, you can brake so much later off the racing line. And then also here, outside of the corner, with a little bit more speed of the car, it just makes more sense. The car just has more grip. Here stay on the very outside, and then here cut back over the racing line, then again on the outside. And especially those long sweeping corners where you can make use of the outside, where there's not a lot of rubber laid down. There you can actually make the difference. And you notice that in the lap time. in the first half of the track, in the slow corners, there was basically no difference in the delta. But now towards the end of the lap, with like those fast corners, you can definitely, in my opinion, make the difference using a wet line, just a little bit off the normal racing line, and then you will improve in your lap time for sure. So yeah, as like a general feedback, I think like overall very well done. I think in slow speed corners, it's maybe not the most realistic. Are we always searching for the most realistic? I don't know. Everyone to their own. I don't think it's that bad. It's completely fine, but especially in the fast corners, you notice a difference. That iRacing really put thought into it, that you have rubber on the racing line that's just slippery on the racing line, and you have to use a different line. Maybe it's also going to be different with different cars. Like I, for example, only drove GT4 in real life, and there it really works in the slow corners. That you can go off the racing line and then like do the switchbacks. I never drove the GT3 in the rain in real life. Maybe it works better in GT3 to use a more conventional line in the slow corners. And yeah, then iRacing would have it spot on. So that's just, my opinion of like a little bit of how is it really from real life to sim racing. And I'm always also telling myself like it doesn't have to be 100% realistic all the time. It needs to be fun, it needs to be accessible, it needs to be um, understandable for all of the drivers, not just pros, not just real life drivers, but everyone who's driving the sim and wants to enjoy driving the sim. And I think that's the most important. And yeah, with that, also props to iRacing. I was a bit skeptical, but that is really well done. I can only say this is the by far, or I would say this is the only real rain experience you can get in sim racing because no one else can really offer this.